Okay, Mrs. H, Psychology. This is for paper 1, the memory topic. And this would be an answer, model answer really, for outlining the method used in one study, and this time investigating interference as a theory of forgetting. So I use this with a mock exam for my Year 12s. Year 12s do not use Badley and Hitch, the TikTok study. It was not investigating interference, and you don't have the detail for it. So we need to use a more relevant study. So let's have a look at these. Okay, so I would suggest maybe one of them for 3 marks would be Hank-Schmidt, and you need detail on the method, so 3 marks on the method used, so they're not interested in results. Okay, so you could say it's a real life naturalistic study on memories of street names. Sample is always useful to put in this method. Who are they using? Sample participants ages 11 to 79. They were given maps with street names replaced by numbers, and they were asked to recall them. You could include also that they had questionnaires also and other details like how often they moved house, where they lived, for how long, etc., etc. So remember, the method question is what can you tell people that somebody else could go away and replicate. That's what they're looking for, the detail on it. So you do need quite a lot of detail on the method. So that was Hank-Schmidt. Not needed for this particular question, but because we're doing interference here, I'm also using this as revision studies on interference. So you could go on to say they found the results where they had retroactive was assessed here by the number of times they'd moved house, and there was a positive association between the number of times they moved and the number of street names forgotten. Extraneous variables were things like whether they walked or were driven to school, whether they played in the neighborhood or not. So basically it was showing an example of a retroactive interference. Okay, if we wanted another study, we could use Keppel instead. Remember, for this 3 mark, you don't need it, but in terms of interference as a topic and learning a little bit more about that, we could use Keppel. Keppel had participants presented with trigrams in a controlled lab experiment using a repeated measures design. What they had to do was count backwards in threes from a random number, which was the interference task, and either for 3, 9, or 18 seconds of counting backwards. They randomized these to prevent order effects. And then they were asked to try to recall the trigram correctly over a number of different trigrams. Okay, so we've got plenty of lovely detail there for 3 marks. Results in this particular case, again, you don't need it for the method question. All got the first trigram 100% correct, and then they basically went on to find that they had proactive interference. That original then started showing up in their next trigram recall. Okay, so a bit of extra just for revision or for an extended essay question on interference. Let's say, so further research, Badley and Hitch, it was a more naturalistic study on rugby players. They were individually asked to recall names of teams they played that season in order of the match, and obviously recall was hindered by the number of games played, not how long ago they played. So it shows interference in real life. Or you could use Tolving. Participants given lists of words separated into 6 categories, like metals, fruits, etc. They were asked to recall on different occasions, but later they were given cues like the list heading. Recall was 70% at first, but then it deteriorated with each list. But cued recall, being given a list heading, improved their recall. So it implies that words were in the long-term memory, but interference was occurring. Okay, and if you need, there is one more study there. So we've got plenty of data there. Remember, for this 3 mark, you just need one of those. So I would start off with either the Keppel or the Hank-Schmidt study. Okay, but if you need extras in terms of detail for an essay or something like that, here's another piece of research.